Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Shop Talk. This is the show where we pick the brains of an expert. My name is Alex and in this episode we're talking about forklifts and forklift safety. Joining me again here today we have Richard Brown. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Richard is the VP of Marketing at VIA Technologies, and for the recent months, he's been living and breathing all things forklift safety, and that makes him uniquely capable of answering our questions. So Richard, if you lined up 1,000 people and you had them all point out 1,000 different things, ideas of inventions that they could come up with or markets that they were going to get into, I'd bet you any money not one of them would say forklifts. So why forklifts? Tell me why forklifts of all things?
I think you're probably right when you say that. Although on the other hand, I think the forklift is one of the great underappreciated inventions of our time. If you think right now with the supply chain problems, at-home deliveries, the forklift is basically holding the global economy together.
That's true.
Without it, it would be impossible to distribute goods as efficiently as they are right now. So actually, I'd like to claim we had a brilliant marketing strategy where we looked at the forklift market and said this is the opportunity, and then we developed the product. But I think, in a sense, that the development of the product was a lot more evolutionary in a way.
More organic.
More organic. Actually, organic's a much better word. What happened was we demoed a very early version of the forklift safety kit at a show in China. Okay. In Shanghai, the largest embedded show there, and we just got this amazing response from customers. And I think at that time, safety was becoming a much larger concern for big Chinese industrial enterprises, and they were looking for solutions, and nobody was really servicing the market. So that was where it began, and then since we've started promoting it in China and other countries, then we received a lot of feedback from different customers.
Well, I guess I just assumed China had all autonomous forklifts. Well, first of all, let me explain this product, the Mobile 360, what is it, forklift safety system, right? You still need an operator in the forklift. It's not an autonomous forklift or forklift itself. It's a system that you install onto your existing forklift, and it kind of it helps the driver, right? I just assumed that they were all, flying around in spaceships and using autonomous forklifts by now, but that's not the case.
No, I think if you look in terms of application of industrial AI, is that China in many ways is leading the world, and it's looking to how to automate its factory operations. It's making huge investments in that regard. Now, I think if you look at forklifts, is that right now you're starting to see introduction of much more autonomous style vehicles, but the reality is that the vast majority of forklifts that are on the market are still driven by a human operator, and they will continue to be so. Okay. So what we're trying to do with our forklift safety system is to make life easier and safer for the operator. One of the big issues that we're trying to help resolve is pedestrian detection. Now, if you look at many different countries, is that one of the biggest causes of accidents in warehouses and factories is a forklift running into someone.
That's crazy.
Now, often it's not the driver's fault.
Sure.
It's that somebody's walking along, they maybe get out the safety lane, they're not really thinking, they're picking up their phone, and then boom, they can be hit by a forklift. And this is what we're trying to eliminate. The psychological effect on a driver, if, for example, they run into somebody, even if it's not their fault, can be very, very high and very, very serious. And we're hoping to try and minimize that in the future.
What's to stop? Well, first let me ask, is there a lot of competition in this?
So what we're seeing is, I think, some of the forklift makers themselves, what they're doing, they're making their forklifts smarter and smarter.
Sure.
They're starting to add these features on, which certainly makes sense. There are some traditional forklift safety manufacturers in the market, and they're offering things like safety lanes, maybe some kind of radar that can identify when people are in hazardous positions, etc. But as far as we can see, nobody has such a complete solution as we've been able to develop using AI technology.
Wow.
So I think the challenge for us is how to educate the market, and then how to grow the market, how to partner with other, for example, forklift makers to introduce this technology to their customers.
Sure. I think forklift operators are a little bit like unsung heroes, right?
Right.
I mean, this pandemic that's been happening and is still kind of happening.
Yes.
Even here in Taiwan, it didn't affect us too much, but even I noticed an increase in the amount of packages that I ordered.
Yes.
At some point in that package's journey, it's been on the forklift.
Yes.
And I think you're right in saying that the importance of the forklift is totally unseen in the public,
Yes.
right? We
Yes.
don't talk about it at all. To the point where it's just kind of it's taken for granted completely, right?
Yes.
Even the people in the shop, and from my own experience, you see it as just like another tool,
Yes.
right? If a shop is upgrading, do you think when the decision comes down to replacing a tool completely or upgrading one, what's the benefit of one to another? I mean, surely do you wait for an autonomous forklift to come out? Is that even on the horizon? Or do you upgrade your existing forklift? What's kind of the decision basis around that?
Now, 2-3 years ago, a lot of discussion was about autonomy.
Right,
And so autonomous cars were going to take over the world.
right.
Autonomous robots were going to fill the warehouse. And there were lots of articles about what are we going to do about the workers.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, there's all talk about basic minimum wage and all these kind of things started coming out. So there's a lot of worries then about how autonomy would lead to massive unemployment and maybe even social instability. 2-3 years down the line, suddenly that situation and discussion has disappeared.
Yeah.
And it's completely changed. And what we're finding, if you look, for example, at forklifts, or you look at trucking, or you look at a lot of areas of transportation, suddenly you have a massive labour shortage.
Yeah.
And what's happening is that a lot of people who've been working in the industry for 20-30 years are now beginning to retire. They're beginning to feel that the conditions, the pay, are not what they should be.
Right.
And so suddenly companies are scrambling to figure out how to retain their staff. They're also figuring out how to recruit younger people who may not be attracted to work in these kind of industries. So when we look, for example, at our safety system, I think one of the key benefits, as I mentioned earlier, is about how to make the job easier for people to handle.
Sure.
How to reduce stress by making the vehicle safer to operate.
Right.
And so I think when you're making a big purchase decision, sure, you should be looking to the future and you should be saying, okay, yes, ultimately we need to go autonomous.
Right.
But in the short term, you also need to look at, hey, I've got 50 vehicles, I've got 100 vehicles. How can I improve their operation to make life easier for the staff, but also more efficient for our operations?
Right.
So I think you have to sort of look at it from that perspective. So we see the opportunity for us, certainly right now, is in terms of making the systems out there much safer and helping employers improve the value and the operation capabilities of their existing vehicles.
You touched on something that was interesting. I had never considered it before. I mean, we all know that my generation, generations younger than mine, are extremely fleety, right? Like the conditions need to be perfect for work. And I think a contributing factor to that is the fact that we've been told that autonomy is coming, right? A robot's going to do your job.
Yes.
And in an ideal world, that means you can go to the beach and relax while a robot does your work. But that's never going to happen. That's not how it works, right?
Right.
So now these younger generations, they're afraid to get into something like the trucking business or logistics in general.
Yes.
All kinds of things: cooking, warehouse working, dock working, things
Yes.
like that. And I just hadn't considered the fact that now there's a labor shortage of people that there's no one filling that void that the retirees are leaving, right?
Exactly.
Because yeah, as an employer, what do you do then? There's no one coming in with their resume, but there's loads of people going out.
Right.
So I guess making the job more attractive would be a solution to that, right?
Yes, and I think as we look to the future, like how do you sort of restore more dignity, and how do you value manual workers more than they have been in the past 20 years?
Yeah, and it's been a problem for
Yes.
since it began, right?
Yes.
I know in my hometown in Canada, some of the wealthiest people are drywallers and
Yes.
construction workers.
Yes.
And until recently, everybody's kind of put them on a lower rung
Yes.
than say lawyers and
Exactly.
whatever else. So it'll be interesting to see where technology kind of. I mean, we start with inventing technology to help us, but it ends up changing us a little bit, right?
Yes,
And how
yes.
we see things. And
Yes.
it'll be fascinating, at least for me, to see how things like this system kind of shift our ideas of the workplace.
Exactly.
In the future.
Exactly.
Well, Richard, thank you for your time again. I found this conversation actually quite interesting.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it too.
Thank you for watching. If you want to find out more information about any of the things that we talked about here today, check the links in the description, and we'll see you next time.